Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Oculi Rebus. This is your host. I am the man, the myth, the unlegendary one himself with the MEE Mike Ellis experience, Mike Ellis. Now, full disclosure, I lied to you guys. I said we're going to be updating the podcast, and this would be a season two, if you will. That is all still happening. Ordered some new devices, but they're gonna be they're gonna be late. Let me just open with that. So when the new stuff does come in, expect some cool little sound effects, some interviews, like I said, for the future and everything else. But I did think about just not doing an episode this week after I spent a few hours trying to mess around with some of the production stuff. But I can't. In my hearts of hearts, there's a lot that needs to be said. There's a lot of stories, a lot of topics, a lot of things to go over. I also thought about trying to do a little news blurb in the middle, like I wanted to do, but I'm not even going to do that this week. This episode is produced by the one and only John Solis. Is a Yuckfo production, and is narrated by me. Narrated. It's like marinated, huh? Narrated by me, Mike Ellis. This episode is titled Damage Plan. Thank you for the band. Put a pretty good solid album out. But Damage Plan, that's what we're going to call it. Now, I hate to open up with a Hitler quote, but that's what's going to happen. And I'm not in the business of calling people Hitler. I think that's childish, and I think that's just immoral, and I think it's a cheap way to do things. Excuse me real quick, I gotta drink some water. But Hitler quote, right? I've never defended Hitler, and I won't. Well, I don't say never. I did do it for a argumentative point once, but by no means am I defending Hitler. But to say that he never had a stroke of genius, I think, is asinine. So his quote from Adolf Hitler: "If you win, you need not to have to explain. If you lose, you should not have to, or you should not be there to explain." So if you haven't figured it out yet, this is about Afghanistan. And it's not really about Afghanistan itself. It's about the problems associated with Afghanistan. And I think that there's a lot of things going on right now. So I always tell people when it comes to like leadership, when in charge, be in charge. I've said it across multiple industries and disciplines, and I think it's very true. When in charge, be in charge. In the absence of somebody being in charge, it might be you who is in charge. You might be the boss. You might be the leader. So when in charge, be in charge. Pretty simple, right? But what we have right now is hold on. I digress, everyone. I don't want to get too overtly political in this. This is not about pointing the finger as to who's to blame for what's going on in Afghanistan, although there will be a little bit of finger pointing about that. It's not about who caused the problem that we have in Afghanistan. It's not what this is about at all. This is about the current problem and what we have going on in Afghanistan, okay? Now that that's out of the way. All right, so when in charge, be in charge. Some people think it's a cop-out answer, right? Like there's definitely leaders in industry and in politics and politicians and stuff like that they come out and say, hey, I'm going to put you in charge for this. Sometimes it's because they can't handle it themselves. Kamala Harris. Oh, excuse me, I had a cough while I was calling out the vice president for her non-handling of the border problem. I guess it's still not a crisis, right? The border problem, right? When in charge, be in charge. Some people do it as a cop-out because they don't want to take the problem on themselves. And I think that's bullshit, but it's whatever, right? Every POTUS, every president in recent memory loves to blame the past. We got a lot of that with Biden. Well, when Bush was president, and then Trump, well, Biden, and then, Biden, well, Obama, and then Biden, we have, well, there's Trump. It's a cyclical thing. But when in charge, be in charge. Now, with that being said, I think that President George W. Bush didn't do a lot of blaming to Clinton. And I know some of you stalwart Clinton fans are going to be like, well, he was the greatest. Wrong. If I had a buzzer button, I'd hit it right there, or I'd hit the joke right there. But I don't have that yet. We're working on that, guys. But there's always something you can blame. Now, I don't think that that's fair in some cases, but in some cases, it's absolutely fair. So when it comes to, for example, Donald Trump complaining about Obamacare, he can kind of complain about that because there's really nothing he could have done about it. Yes, he did some executive orders to strip away some of the things, but he couldn't directly change it without the help of Congress, because the Supreme Court was nowhere to be heard on that. Really, well, I mean, they were heard, but anyway, that's a whole nother fucking episode. Okay. So there's certain things like that. Like Biden can't get mad at Trump when it comes to, let's see, or excuse me, he can get mad at Trump when it comes to like not executive orders, but when it comes to actual laws and stuff that was passed through Congress, because he can't change it. It's the same principle. But what blows my mind is this Afghanistan thing, right? There was no treaty, there was no resolution. It was just an agreement between the president, President Trump, and the Taliban. But even then, I can't remember if it was his Secretary of Defense or Department of Homeland Security, whoever it was, right? Secretary of State came out saying that yes, we have an agreement in words and in writing, but the ground will always dictate what happens. Now, people have been sending me this whole like, well, Trump wanted to pull everyone out. He did, but he didn't pull everyone out. He did put a timeline on it, but that was not a de facto timeline. It was not the end of game thing. There was always the understanding that things change, and we might have to stray away. So here comes the new president, right? President Joe Biden, blaming Donald Trump on national television. But then he said something I thought was pretty interesting, right? The buck stops here. Okay, Joe Biden, you were the senator at one point, you were vice president, now you're the president. How many chances do you get? You ran 3 times for the president of the United States of America. I think right now we have an empty hand in the office. It's nothing new. There's always an empty hand in the office, right? But I think this time he doesn't even realize it in some ways. And I don't mean that with his senility. That can be a whole nother episode too. It's more to do with, I don't think he realizes that he's actually making decisions, that he's capable of making decisions. He's in charge, be in charge, right? So it goes back to this whole, the buck stops with me. Okay. If the buck stops with you, that means it's your problem now. It means you grabbed it by the horns. You grabbed the whore by the hair and you put it in. I hope somebody laughed at that. It's just yours now. You took ownership of it. This isn't a, well, you're president and it's your problem thing, which it's still very true. You asked for these problems. You said, give me your weak, give me your tired, and I will heal. Not exactly that. Obviously, I don't mean that in a literal sense, but when you run for a higher office like that, that's what you say. You say there's problems out there. I want those problems. I will solve those problems. The buck stops here. Okay. It stopped there. But then what? It's not just the end of the game, right? In my honest, humbled opinion, if you decide to be the person who says the buck stops here, not only are you accepting that problem, you're accepting ownership of the outcome. And I don't see that. I think as Americans, we should be appalled by that. Now, this isn't a new thing. There's times where, of course, other leaders refuse to accept responsibility for certain things. I know right now everyone's like, well, Donald Trump didn't take responsibility for January 6th. Ha ha ha. We'll kind of get to that in a little bit. I disagree with a lot of things that happened January 6th, but we're gonna get to something. Just follow along, right? We're only 10 minutes in. You got this. Drink some water. You'll be okay. So the travesties in Afghanistan right now are blaring. They're glaring. They're blaring, and it's really crazy. It's really crazy to me. So with again the travesties, I think the truth we don't know is worse than the imagination we do have. There's people in Afghanistan right now, right? We'll get to some stuff that A general said, which to me, he's more of a politician these days, anyways. Which I know once you get that high up, it's all politics, I think. So I've been told. But I digress, okay? There's been people putting some stuff out there. And we'll get to that in a second, right? But the Taliban right now, they're using language about protecting the women and not holding people accountable for being against the Taliban. And they're talking about being a prosperous nation and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit, 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 right? Or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However you want to do it. It's all bullshit. They've said it before. You know, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and eats like a duck, it's a duck. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm the smartest guy in the room. Here on the 13th floor, because it's just me. John Solis isn't even here right now. So I am the smartest person in the room, at least. At least I got that, right? So this language has been used before. It's all fodder. And are we accepting it? I mean, you had this. Oh, excuse. I know I cuss, but we had this complete fucking idiot. They're chanting death to America, but they seem so nice and friendly. It's odd. Whatever she said. None of that makes sense. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. I don't get it. But at least both sides of the aisle right now, and a lot of the media outlets are very upset about the handling of it, and they're asking for accountability on it, and hopefully we get some. Now we had a General Milley, I think that's his name. Pretty big guy. I know he's come under fire recently for some of his remarks when it comes to the inclusive nature of the military now, or whatever. I can't really remember what it was. But anyways, General Milley, I heard this on the news yesterday. He was doing a report. I think there was a lot of things that kind of went, I don't want to say unchecked, just misunderstood. No. It wasn't understood. And I'm not saying you guys, my audience, is stupid. I'm not saying that at all. But there's a lot of uneducated, there's a lot of dumb people out there. All right, so General Miley, whatever you want to call him, right? He said we have military on the ground. He said that we had our very own special forces. The British Special Forces, SAS, was out there. And there was a few other countries out there that were trying to help get the people out of Afghanistan. So I'm not upset that we got help from the British or anybody else. I'm not. This is an international problem, and it needs international input. That's not my quorum. But the administration's kind of downplayed it a little bit, saying it's really not that bad. They're giving us safe passage and all this other stuff. But yet we have a multinational offense here, so to speak. It's interesting. I did hear the SecDef recently speak about this too. He said the military was on standby. So now there's two things that I want to talk about with this. If the military was on standby, why were they on standby? Did we know the intel was already bad? Did we know it wasn't going to be 6 months to a year before Afghanistan fell and it was going to be 30 days? Did we know that? Probably. We probably knew that. We ignored it. We just omitted that from our brains. Now, when it comes to these military units on standby, I do have on good knowledge that we do have 2 units that are ready for deployment at all times. One of them's the 82nd Airborne, and I've seen pictures and videos, and those are the guys that are there. So maybe we did do a quick deployment of these guys. I know Biden said he was going to have 5,000 more troops there to get these original 10,000. Now we're at 15,000 Americans out of there. That's pretty crazy, huh? So we went from we have military on standby to we have military there, which I would hate to see our men, women, young boys, young ladies in harm's way. But I'm glad they're there to try to fix this problem. It's not their problem to fix. It's a lapse of judgment, a lapse of possible intel, which I don't think the intel was bad. I think the intel was ignored. Did I just say that? I think it was ignored. I said that because I do think it was ignored. So I've seen reports, right? One's from like secondhand reports and stuff like that. I got a buddy who sent me a picture today of a dead Taliban guy. Got shot by one of our guys. Why? Because he was being an asshole and he was trying to start some shit. That's what you get. I made the statement of, well, what do you expect is going to happen when you show up in a cardboard tank to a guy with a real gun? Play stupid games, you get stupid prizes, right, ladies and gentlemen? And that's what it is. So we have that, right? And then, so we clearly have the military there. They're clearly loaded for combat just in case. And I'm not thinking that we're over there on some secret kind of mission, but obviously something's happening. Something enough to be able to say, hey, you guys are good to use force as needed. So, also, if you're not familiar with the person by the name of Victor Marks, phenomenal gentleman, I reached out to his people, just letting him know I was going to mention him on here. He's got a ministry organization, and he saves women and children from all over the world that are being sold into sex slavery and just exploited and stuff like that. He's been doing some work in Texas. If y'all follow him on Instagram and social media and stuff like that, he's a phenomenal guy. Some people might be a little like, oh, he's a little too much for me, but he's a really good guy. I had the honor, the liberty, the luxury to meeting him. And I did tell him I think he has the greatest job in the world. I know someone's going to be like, wow, why would you stand by so much violence? These women and children need protecting, and there's a man who's willing to do it. So I highly recommend looking into him. But he has put some stuff up on his social medias talking about how he's gotten phone calls and text messages and all that from contacts in Afghanistan saying they're going door to door. People are being killed, which I could believe is due to religious persecution. There was another report that came out. I wish I had it in front of me so I could tell you where it came from. But the report is saying that the Taliban members are going door to door looking for Christian Bibles, looking at cell phones for digital Bibles. It's a whole other type of genocide again. But this is the Taliban that says they're going to be more open. I made a winking face right there and kind of put my hands up in the little parentheses for that one for you guys. I know you can't see me, but it's got to sell the effect, huh? So Taliban, I think you're full of shit. I think most Americans know that. I think most people of the world know that. The only people that you might be playing and not even playing, but they just don't care because they're on your side anyways, is Iran. I said it. Maybe China. Said that too. Maybe I said that. I'm not sure about that. Pakistan. Said it too. And OPEC. Oh, we're going to get into a rabbit hole about OPEC here in a few minutes. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. But let's stay on subject, right? So I have people that are getting firsthand information about shit popping off. We know it's bad. The media is telling us it's bad. The administration is staying quiet. It's because they didn't win. And they're trying not to be here to explain that. Fuck Hitler. Hitler, ladies and gentlemen. I hate that I had to use a Hitler quote, but it's such a damn good quote. It really is. And he followed it because he fucking killed himself. Didn't want to explain it, huh? So Marx is out there doing what God allows him to do. And Glenn Beck, you can love, you can hate him, whatever the case is. He's got the Nazareth Fund. Made several millions of dollars. I think it came out in 2005, something like that, if not mistaken. And he's been raising money to save minorities from all over the world that are in situations like what we have in Afghanistan. So if you disagree with Glenn Beck, I don't think you can disagree with his platform on wanting to help people. They got a very good CEO in place. It seems like a solid organization. So if you got some extra money, go look up the Nazareth Fund or make a donation to, I almost said Karl Marx, Victor Marx. I know he would not be a fan of that. I'm sorry, my good sir. Both of these guys have some great things going on. Victor Marx does work with special operations from our military. He is non-government affiliation, though. He's an NGO, non-government organization. So they're out there trying to do good things. So that's a little plug for those guys. I doubt anyone's going to even hear this because nobody listens to me anyways. But let's get back to these people that are there that need to be saved. Why do we save them? All right, there's twofold. We got people that helped us during the war that are going to be murdered, and then we have people that are dual citizenship that are probably going to be murdered too. So why do we help them, right? It's pretty simple. Like we made a problem. It's not about who started it again, right? It's about who's dealing with it. We made this problem, but we also are indebted to our fellow countrymen, our fellow Americans, even though they made the choice to go there, probably for search of money, dual citizenship and stuff like that. And we also have these interpreters that we offered safe passage to. We promised them. It's not that bad. The Taliban's not that bad. But people are clinging to the side of the airplane to leave. We had somebody pull a Con Air. I'm not trying to make it funny, but that made me laugh a little. Yes, I know it's inhumane. Poor guy died in the landing gear. Because why? Because the Taliban is fucking brutal. They know that. We know that. But we're acting like they're not. So it's not too late to try to save these people. We need to show. I'm not saying start doing some crazy combat, although scorched earth policy would have been really good, really early on this problem. We would have taken a lot of people that don't need to be here. But here's the thing. President Joe Biden said the buck stops with you, right? You're controlling it now. So how does it get stopped? The buck stops here. Well, how did you stop it? You don't just get to say words. Words have meaning. Words have an opportunity to hurt and to harm. And your silence is hurting people. There's been Afghanistan nationals, dual citizens here in America. They've been protesting close to the White House. Because we fucked them. We let them out there like that. Now, the media seems to be telling the half-truth, which I know I've already said that. And you know what? It's a shame, but at least there's some half-truth in this, right? Both sides of the party are completely upset with how the administration's handling the problem. I don't know what a better answer would have been. I can surmise. I can give you a diatribe. I'd like to think I know a better answer, but I really don't. But I know this wasn't it. Now, if you want to get in the DMs and we can talk about what I think would have been a better answer, because I do have my theories, I do have my thoughts. I just don't know if it would have worked better. Because you don't know until you know, right? But we could have absolutely prioritized. One great thing the CIA has been doing for years is making our next enemy. They're phenomenal at making our next enemy. Look at the pictures we see. Look at the Taliban in 2003. They don't even know how to hold a weapon. Now we've trained them how to hold a weapon, how to shoot it. And then we left a ton of equipment there. It's cheaper to leave it than it is to bring it. I guess that's the answer. But we obviously didn't make sure it was secured very good. And I get it. Put a blast door, Taliban can get through a blast door. I get it. This seems way too quick. Way too damn quick. And I know everyone's like, well, their military ran away. You got to do some research into that. Their military didn't have the weapons. They had the weapons. They got stolen, right? They didn't always have the ammo. They didn't have the food. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't have the knowledge. We left them without all that. After 20 years, you would think that they're better to go. But everybody says that. Here's the thing. America, the colonies were founded, 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? And we started colonizing America. And in 1774, we began to say we want nothing to do with this. And then we had the complete war in 1776 and all that. And we got helped by the French. And then there was the French Indian War. Then there was other wars that we had. And we needed help. We didn't just get good in 20 years. It's taken us 200 years to get where we're at today. Yes, there's been nothing but war since then. Kind of became really good at it. Now, Afghanistan's been at war forever too, but they haven't been in a logistic war. They've been in guerrilla style war tactics. It's different, right? It's also different when you have an enemy that's not going to follow the Geneva Convention, which I'm assuming we expect the Afghan National Army to do. Our army, defense forces, whatever they're called. Now, I know, as I said, it's something about January 6th, right? I'm not going to give my full-blown opinions on the thing. I think a lot of bad things happened that day. I'll say that much, right? But here's what I find interesting. There's a lot of service members, I've talked to a few, that are hurt by this. It hit home. They lost people. These people didn't come home. Maybe they made a bad decision that led to the death of somebody in their team. Maybe they got blown up with IEDs and they're missing legs now. There's a lot of sorrow out there right now. But I proposed the question to somebody earlier, and if you're listening, thanks for the help. I'm a little surprised we don't have an anti-Vietnam protest going on. I'm a little surprised these service members aren't out there picketing DC, picketing these capitals. Not saying they're pro-war, but asking why. Why now? Why do I deserve this humiliation and agony? We didn't properly hand this country over. Not only that, let's ignore that, because that's all opinion right there, right? We didn't properly hand it over. That's an opinion. I'll give you that. Granted, check Roger on that level. There's a lot to be upset about, especially for a service member. A couple months ago, they voted to repeal the war authorization. They could have just let it war out. That hit some veterans. That told them your job didn't matter. Or not matter, it wasn't necessary. We're against it now. I almost feel like this administration is just preparing a whole nother generation of Vietnam vets. We already know we don't take care of the vets. We already know that. And that's sad. It really is sad. So I said that to my friend. He goes, well, if the service members get out there and protest, it would just be considered an insurrection again. And that's probably right. You'll see terminology like right-wing warmongers used, right-wingers, pro-war demonstrators. You'll see stuff like that. But nobody wants to talk about the emotional strain that this is taking on our military personnel. Because they're stronger than that, right? We all have a breaking point. And I think that we're having some people that might be hitting it right now. Reach out to them. Let them know that it was worth it. That there is a population in Afghanistan that is better now. It's not their women. They're getting put back in the jobs and not allowed to do anything. If you pray for what's going on and hope that we can find some kind of civility and that we can kind of begin to heal. Afghanistan's going to not be looking good. Mark my words. We're on the verge of 20-year anniversary from a terrible day in American history. The next day was beautiful. It brought everyone together. Yes, I know some people persecuted people of certain faiths, but for the most part, we were all together. So I know the president came out and said, well, this is President Trump's fault, ex-President Trump's fault. There was no treaty. There was no mandate. None of that stuff. This is your buck to hold. How are you going to hold it? How are you going to answer to it? I think we've already seen the answer. We're just going to act like it's not a big deal, really. They're just now starting to get out there. Joe Biden's back to trying to hide. Kamala Harris is out gallivanting on the taxpayer dollars again. I always tell everybody, I know I always tell everybody a lot, but I'm very repetitive with the things I say. The hardest thing to do is to make a choice. And inaction is action. By not doing something, you're doing something. You're setting a very dangerous precedent. In my opinion, we're showing weakness. Again, I'm not saying let's go to war. I'm not saying let's go to combat. I'm not saying let's send our women and children, our husbands, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters. I'm not saying send them in harm's way. But let's fix this. before we have to. Now, there's another quote that I found. Wait, do I got two quotes or just one more? Guess I only got one more quote. There is no flag large enough to cover the shame of killing innocent people. Howard Zinn. I think that's an interesting one. We took all of our flags down. Embassies no longer has an American flag. I'm not saying we ran away, but I'm just saying our flag's not there anymore. Our flag's a signal of beacon. It's a signal of beacon, excuse me. It's a beacon of freedom. It's a signal of opportunity. And all the death that we've had in Afghanistan of civilian lives, innocent civilian lives, let me say that, and our own military personnel, it's sad. In a few minutes, this episode's going to be over. But I kind of just thought of something that I remember reading. It's about George W. Bush. All right. So we'll get to that in a second. I just feel like the buck stopping here, all we did was we found a hallway and we put a door on it. That's it. All you gotta do is open the door and you walk to the hallway. We just decorated the hallway. We didn't put any protective measures in place. And it blows my mind, guys. It blows my mind. It really does. So President Bush, love him, hate him, respect him, whatever. I know a lot of liberals that actually love him now, and I know a lot of Republicans and conservatives who hate him now. It's kind of weird. Weird how we've gone down that rabbit hole. But what's interesting is, in his book, his little memoirs, he mentions that he felt every single American death. I don't remember if it was his book or somebody else's book, but they were talking about how he would go up to the Fisher houses and stuff like that, and he would present awards to the service members, Purple Hearts and stuff like that. And if they were in a coma, whatever the case was, he would get the medical information. He would talk with the family and all that. And two real quick I thought was beautiful was we walked in one of the rooms. They give the diagnosis saying this guy's probably not going to wake up. They do the citation for the awards. He kisses the guy on the head, and the guy wakes up. So he asked them to publish the orders again. They said, Mr. President, we already published them. We're not supposed to publish them again. He goes, yeah, he didn't hear the damn award. Publish the orders. So he did it again for the guy. It's nice little gesture for a guy that almost died. Another woman did not want to meet the president. He went in there, did the award, and he started walking away. This lady walked up to him and started shouting at the president. If I'm not mistaken, she may have beat him on the chest a little bit. Secret Service let it happen. He called it okay. This is all your fault, blah, 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 blah. Just cursed the president out. She finished and she went on her way. President got on the helicopter and he looked at, I think it was the photographer, and said, man, that mama was really mad at me. And she has every right to be. It's my fault. The humility, the willingness to say, that's my problem. I caused it. You can love or hate President Bush, but I do genuinely believe he was a good guy. And I think that statement is very true. He understood that it was his fault. I don't think there's a day that goes by where he doesn't think about how many lives he cost to be gone, to cease to exist. I really do think he felt that. So we've been babbling for about 34 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Feels good to record this episode. Not good to talk about this stuff, but it's good to record this episode. I'm glad I committed to doing this episode today. So social media, guys, it's been a little quiet. It's been a little bit of dead. My fault. I apologize. It's because I was trying to rework this whole podcast thing to make it kind of cool for you guys. So I'll be back at that, okay? Hey, but make sure, look, come on now. Get your buddies on the YouTube. We're doing that a little bit. Not often, but we're doing it. But, you know, we got that Instagram. We got the Twitter. Share the links. We're on Apple, Google, many other platforms, you know, Sticher FM, all that good stuff. So share the links. I really, really do appreciate you guys for listening when y'all do. The DMs are open if anybody wants to hit me up on this and do some kind of rebuttal or defense or whatever. I don't know what to expect with this one. Somebody might take offense. Time will tell, huh? So feel free to get in those DMs. They're always open. Again, at Oa Rebus on Twitter, Octoli underscore Rebus on the Instagram page. Again, share the links, get out there, and let's continue this aggressive thinking. Remember, perspective is a hell of a drug. Well, in typical fashion, I can go on and on, but it's time to move on. Mike Ellis, out.